Have you ever wondered if you could survive if you stepped into a medieval tavern with no coin, no plan, and a questionable cloak that smells like turnips and sheep? You probably think you'd be fine, maybe even thrive. Walk and order a pint flirt, with the barmaid tell a few stories. But no, you might not survive 5 minutes. Not unless you enjoy lukewarm barley soup, collapsing benches, and deeply suspicious stares from men named Garth who keep knives in their shoes. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I want to know who's falling asleep where. Now find a comfortable place to lie down, turn on a small fan, relax, and let's start our journey tonight. The road is muddy. Everything is muddy. Your boots are soaked through. Your hood is caked in a crust of wet dirt. You haven't eaten since morning, unless you count licking the honey off a wax paper someone dropped in the market. It's almost dark. The sky looks like someone smeared old ash across it. You see lantern light flickering up ahead a sign. A crooked wooden sign swinging from one chain. It reads, "The Sly Pig." There's a snout painted on it, and what might be a tankard or a sausage, it's unclear. A woman outside is vomiting into a barrel. Promising. You duck your head and step inside. It's loud. Warmer than outside, sure, but filled with the kind of heat that comes from too many bodies, too much sweat, and no understanding of ventilation. The air smells like sour ale onions, wet wool, and something distinctly animal. Every head turns. You freeze. A man with one eyebrow and 2 teeth grunts. Someone else snorts. A third shouts. He looks too clean. You do not in fact look clean. You nod awkwardly and shuffle to the back. There's an empty stool near the hearth. Well, almost empty. A cat is on it. You move the cat. It hisses. You sit anyway. The innkeeper appears. She has one eye and 0 patience. What'll it be? She snaps. You hesitate. Oh, she eyes you like she's heard that before. Got coin. You reach into your pouch. There's half a button, some lint, and a bent nail. You offer the nail. She sighs. You'll pay another way then. You nod. You don't ask what that means. The hearth crackles. A man nearby coughs so hard he drops his tankard. No one blinks. Someone's playing a sad song on a flute made of bone. Maybe. Across the room, 2 men are arguing about whose goat is prettier. You catch snippets. She's got the shine. Your goat looks like my foot. The woman from outside stumbles in, wipes her mouth, and says, "I'm ready for round 2. There is no menu, no rules, no silence. Only the dull, endless buzz of a world where everyone is tired, everyone is hungry, and everyone has a story you probably don't want to hear. You realize something, then this isn't a place you visit. It's a place that swallows you. Welcome to the Sly Pig. You're not leaving anytime soon. Historical anchor taverns in medieval Europe were central social hubs, not just for drinking, but for sharing news, gambling, sleeping badly, and negotiating shady deals. They were often loud, smelly, and wildly unsanitary by modern standards. Weird fact, some medieval taverns had no official name. Locals referred to them by symbols painted on signs like a boot, a bird, or yes, a pig. Academic debate. Historians still debate whether medieval taverns were primarily used by travelers, or if locals used them more as surrogate living rooms. Some argue they were the closest thing peasants had to a public forum. The cat you evicted from the stool is now glaring at you from the hearth. Every so often it coughs dramatically, as if to say, "You did this." You try to ignore it. The innkeeper returns and slams down a wooden cup in front of you. It sloshes. The liquid inside is brownish, a little fizzy, and smells like old bread left too close to a candle. You don't ask questions. You sip. It tastes like someone fermented grief and added a hint of cabbage. A man leans over from the next table. He smells like onions and regret. You from the north, he asks. You shrug, sort of. He grunts, pleased. My brother's from the north. Died in a ditch. Good man. You nod. Unsure what to do with that information, you take another sip. It doesn't improve. There's a commotion near the door. Someone shouts. He's back, and the tavern erupts in a mix of cheers and groans. A large man enters, ducking beneath the doorway beam. His cloak is patched with fur, and he has a turkey feather stuck in his hat. He's dragging a sack. It jingles. That's thistlegut, someone whispers. Brewed the ale you're drinking. You nod slowly and lower the cup. Thistlegut dumps his sack on the table. Something inside oinks. The crowd cheers again. You decide to focus on the fire. The warmth is nice. The cat's judgmental eyes have closed. A dog wanders past your feet, sniffing everyone's boots like it's inspecting for contraband. A group of locals are playing dice in the corner. The table shakes with every throw. A woman swears, stands up, and hits a man with a ladle. No one intervenes. The game continues. A lute player in the far corner strums a few off-key notes, then clears his throat and starts singing. Oh, the barmaid's breath is scented sweet, like garlic hay and unwashed feet. You try not to laugh. Someone is clapping along with a wooden spoon. Suddenly, the door slams open again. A man covered in snow stumbles in, shouting, "The bridge is out." No one reacts. He shrugs, steals a cup of ale, and sits down. You realize that this tavern exists outside of rules. Time doesn't work the same way here. Daylight fades, but no one leaves. Ale is poured without counting. Fights begin and end with the same shrug. People share benches, bowls, even stories, though not names. The table nearest to you erupts in laughter. Someone just told a joke involving a bishop, a goat, and a suspicious tax audit. You don't ask. The barmaid, who might be the innkeeper's sister, or twin, or clone, drops a bowl of food in front of you. It's on the house, she says. You nod, touched. She adds, you'll owe us later. The food is gray. Possibly porridge, possibly fish, possibly melted floorboards. You take a bite. It's warm. That's enough. A man across the table is carving a wooden flute with a knife so dull it's mostly a suggestion. He nods at you. You got work. You shake your head. He nods again, solemn. That's work too sometimes. The dog has now fallen asleep on your boot. You're afraid to move. The noise ebbs and flows. Dice rattle. Laughter bursts, then fades. Mugs slam on tables like punctuation marks. Someone starts a chant. You can't tell the words, but the rhythm feels ancient. You find yourself swaying a little. Even the cat joins in, yowling at the ceiling. You lean back and let it all wash over you. The smell, the smoke, the blur of voices, the scrape of wood and boot, the heat of the hearth, and the hum of lives colliding in this cramped, lawless, oddly comforting room. You think I could stay here just for a while, but deep down you know better. This place doesn't belong to anyone. It's a pause, not a home. And when dawn comes, the tavern will shrink back into shadow, waiting for the next lost soul to wander in cup in hand, wondering where the floor went. Historical anchor taverns in the Middle Ages served as waypoints for travelers, messengers, and soldiers. They were often chaotic, cramped, and full of second-hand furniture and livestock. Weird fact, some taverns were run by widows or unmarried women who inherited licenses. This led to suspicions, slander, and the belief that all tavern keepers were witches or worse, tax evaders. Academic debate. Historians still debate whether medieval taverns were more central to town life than churches. In many towns, the tavern came first, and services were held in back rooms before churches were even built. The ale sloshes in your gut like a poorly tied water skin. You try to focus on something steady like the wall, but the wall is made of timber warped slightly from years of spilled drink drunken heads and at least one incident involving a goat and a candle. You glance into your cup again. The liquid has separated into layers. That seems bad. There's something floating. That seems worse. You look up and meet the eyes of a man across the room. He's watching you, not with hostility, more like curiosity or pity. He raises his cup and says, "To strong stomachs." You don't toast back. You put the cup down. A woman beside you mutters, "That's Thistlegut's winter batch. He makes it from bread crusts, wormwood, and whatever didn't crawl away in time." Someone laughs behind you and says, "Last time I drank that, I saw the Virgin Mary in a puddle of pig's blood." You start to sweat. The innkeeper returns, wipes the table with a rag that might have once been white, and says, "Drink up." It kills the gut worms. You sip again, out of politeness. You regret it instantly. Now your ears are ringing, and your legs feel like they've forgotten what bones are. Either this is working, or you're about to hallucinate an entirely different tavern. You take a breath, try to focus. People are drinking like their lives depend on it, which in a way they do. Clean water is a gamble, so ale is safer than a well. Boiled during brewing, the liquid kills off disease mostly. Probably. You're told it's good for the humors. The man who toasted you earlier, his name turns out to be Arno, leans in and starts telling you how his cousin tried to open a rival tavern once. He called it the Wet Hound, Arno says. You nod slowly. Problem was, the ale killed a bishop, right there at the bar. Eyes rolled back. Whole thing. So they burned it down. The tavern, not the bishop. You blink. He adds, we think the ale was cursed, or maybe the bishop. Historians still debate. You try to smile. Your face muscles refuse. A child not more than 7 runs past your table with a mug twice her size. She slams it down on a table and yells, "One swamp pint for toothless Rob." A man with no front teeth cheers and downs the entire thing in one gulp. You realize the ale here isn't just drink. It's ritual, it's culture, it's identity. It's what they serve when you're born, when you marry, and when they bury you, usually, all with the same cup. Thistlegut appears again. He's carrying a wooden bucket that smells like death and vinegar got into a fist fight. He scoops something from it into a jug and pours generously into mugs across the room. You're next. You try to stop him. He grins. On the house. You whisper mercy. He shrugs. Same thing. You take the tiniest sip imaginable. It tastes like someone tried to turn sadness into steam. Behind you, 2 men argue about who drank more last midsummer. One insists he drank so much he saw St. Michael playing cards with a goat. The other claims he became the goat. You pretend not to hear. Then someone mentions the greenbat. A hush falls. Thistlegut's face darkens. The green batch was an accident, he says. It wasn't supposed to glow. You ask what was in it. He says not questions. You nod. Fair enough. Someone brings over a plate of food. You don't recognize most of it. There's a loaf of something, possibly bread, stiff enough to be used as a weapon. Next to it, a lump of meat or very brave cheese, sweating under a blanket of mustard. You poke it with your spoon. It pokes back. You try to distract yourself by listening to the lute player again. He's on a new song now. Raise your glass and toast to fate, to soup that bites and ale that hates. A woman claps along using tankards as makeshift cymbals. Your stomach churns, not just from the drink, but from the realization that everyone here has adapted to this. Their bodies, their humor, their expectations, they've all evolved to survive tavern life. You're still on day one. The barmaid returns and places a small clay cup in front of you. What's this, you ask? Cleansing broth, she says. You take a sip. It tastes okay, warm, salty, with a hint of something green and bitter. Your stomach settles, slightly. She leans in. That one's mine, not thistleguts. You whisper, bless you. Historical anchor. In the Middle Ages, ale was safer to drink than water and consumed by adults and children alike. It was often weak small ale for daily use, but stronger brews existed and could be dangerously inconsistent in strength or hygiene. Weird fact, some taverns brewed ale with strange ingredients like soot tree bark or boiled animal bones. One German town experimented with eel ale. Briefly, academic debate. Historians still debate whether ale in medieval taverns was standardized or wildly variable between batches. Some argue local brews were heavily spiced to mask rot or mold. You're beginning to feel it now. Not the ale, which has long since abandoned any logic or restraint, but the tavern itself. It seeps into your skin like smoke, like damp wool, like regret. You've started to blend in. You're no longer the stranger with muddy boots. You're just another blurry figure in a room where time slurs like the lute player's high notes, which is good, because now the locals are talking to you, or more accurately, at you. You've become a convenient ear, and here at the Sly Pig Ears are hard to find that aren't already full of rumors, songs, or earwax. The man beside you, he never gave a name, but someone called him Three Keg. Tom leans close, his breath thick with onions and boiled cabbage. Let me tell you something, he says, finger wagging dangerously close to your eyeball. You think you know pain. My cousin lost a toe to a duck. You blink. A duck? A mean duck, he insists. The tax collector's duck. Trained. Vicious. You nod solemnly. You've learned that nodding is the safest response in all tavern-related conversations. Across the room, a woman is arm wrestling a monk. The monk is winning. A man with a bandaged ear is loudly explaining that he once fought off 3 bandits using only a spoon and divine inspiration. No one challenges him, mostly because he's holding the spoon in question and it's very sharp. You turn and suddenly find yourself face to face with a bard. He doesn't say hello, he just stares. I write songs, he says, about people like you. You point at yourself. Me, he nods. Strangers, the kind that walk into a tavern like it's a story they haven't read yet. You nod, slowly. Then he begins to strum. You're trapped now. His song is something about lost boots, broken hearts, and a chicken named Griselda. It's surprisingly catchy. You glance around. No one seems to mind. This is how it works here. Everyone gets their turn to monologue, their chance to unload something ridiculous, poetic, or deeply concerning. And the tavern listens. It always listens. A group in the back are sharing stories about how they got their scars. One lifts her shirt to reveal a long line across her ribs. Wagon wheel, she says. Another rolls up his sleeve. Rotten eel. Don't ask. The last one just points at his beard. Mine's emotional. Someone laughs so hard they fall off the bench. The cat reclaims it immediately. You sip your broth and listen. Someone begins a tale about the time a man turned into a tree after drinking from a sacred well. Another swears he once met a mermaid who taught him how to cheat at dice. A third claims to have been cursed by a bishop's sneeze. You can't tell what's real anymore, but that's the charm. In this place, everything is true until proven sober. You hear about a pig that predicted storms, a soup that summoned ghosts, a bard who married a shadow, and a chicken that ran for mayor and nearly won. The stories roll on like thunder over the thatched roof. You start to lose track of time. Is it midnight dawn? Wasn't it raining? It doesn't matter. Someone passes you a small clay cup filled with something red. You raise an eyebrow. Beetroot wine, they say. You sip. It tastes like the concept of dirt. A man with an eye patch leans over and says, "You look like you've got a story." You shake your head. "Nonsense," he grins. Everyone hears running from something. You just haven't said it out loud yet. You look down at your hands. They're shaking slightly. From cold fatigue or something else, the lute player is back. He begins a slow tune. This one's softer, gentler, almost sad. You catch fragments. Come ye lost, and come ye low to the fire's dim gold and ale's slow glow. Rest your name, rest your fear, no one asks why you're here. And for a moment, just a moment, you forget the mud, the hunger, the world outside this room. You let yourself exist in this strange, smoky, sour place where everyone is broken and no one is alone. Historical anchor. Storytelling was a major component of medieval tavern culture. With literacy limited, oral tales, real or imagined, were passed around, often exaggerated and shaped into local folklore. Weird fact: some medieval inns kept a local tavern bard who was paid in food and ale to entertain patrons, often with personalized songs or insulting rhymes. Academic debate. Historians debate whether these tales were taken seriously or were understood as communal entertainment. Some argue taverns were key sites of proto-political speech and satire. The barmaid drops a bowl of something in front of you with a splat. It wobbles slowly, like it's considering its options. The smell is complex, equal parts onion dirt and wet feather. You look up. She says, "That's the stew." You ask, "What's in it?" She says, "It's stew." You take that as your answer. The bowl contains a gray-brown sludge with occasional floaters, a chunk of potato half a leek, a mystery cube that looks suspiciously like turnip or toe. There's also what appears to be a whole feather. The feather blinks. You push that part aside. Someone sits beside you. You don't recognize them at first, but then you see the turkey feather in the hat. Thistlegut again. He smiles. "Eat up. That bird died of natural causes. Probably loneliness." You smile weakly and take a bite. It tastes like damp wool and ambition. Thistlegut nods in satisfaction. "That was our best bird. Caught it myself. Was hiding in the chimney. Smelled of wisdom." Across the room, a man is complaining that his bread has teeth marks. The innkeeper tells him that's extra protein. A child shuffles by selling roasted acorns that are mostly pebbles with soot. You buy one for the crunch. Meanwhile, the someone nearby is eating something that might be fish. It has scales and also fur. There's a knock at the tavern door. Everyone freezes. Then they continue drinking. The knock comes again. The innkeeper opens it slowly. A man with a heavy hood steps inside. His beard is white eyes sunken, and in his hands a cooked chicken. He places it silently on the bar and says, "I've paid my rent." The innkeeper nods. The chicken is taken to the back. The man vanishes into the smoke. You chew slowly, watching it all unfold. Back at your table, someone slides you a wooden tray. It has a bowl of greenish broth, a square of bread harder than justice, a a small wedge of something labeled cheese, but smells like foot forgiveness. You eat it anyway. You've stopped asking questions. The bread makes your gums bleed a little. A dog tries to take it from you. You let him. You're not that attached. The woman across from you is dipping hers into her ale to soften it. She sees you watching and shrugs. Works faster than prayers, she says. You laugh weakly, then cough. Thistlegut offers you something in a small jar. Fermented cabbage and clove, he says, for digestion or self-defense. You nod. Which is it good for? He winks. Both. You don't drink it. Instead, you turn your attention to the hearth. Someone has started roasting onions. Not over the fire on a shovel held near it. You wonder if that's safe, or even effective. The room is full of odd rituals. Everyone has their own way of eating. Dipping, soaking, cutting things with spoons, scraping bowls with wood chips. Someone's using a dagger as a fork. Someone else is eating stew with a ladle the size of a helmet. A woman nearby has a bowl of snails still hissing. A man bites into a sausage and screams, still moving. The innkeeper shouts, then it's fresh. You take another bite of your stew. There's something chewy, possibly a wishbone, possibly a button. Either way, you're chewing it carefully. The lute player strums a tune about a woman who married a blacksmith for his oven. It rhymes impressively with cabbage. The cat returns. This time, it brings a dead mouse as a gift. It drops it near your bowl. You thank it out of politeness. The barmaid returns. Want dessert? She asks. You blink. You have dessert. She grins. Boiled plum. You nod. She slams a bowl in front of you. Inside is a single plum boiled until it resembles a raisin with heat stroke. You eat it anyway. It's oddly satisfying. Or maybe your brain has given up. As the night deepens, the food changes. Less bread, more soup. Less talk, more chewing. Fewer fights. People grow quieter, slower, heavier, with full bellies and half-drunk thoughts. You start to feel something strange full, not just in your stomach, but in your chest. That odd warmth of being fed in a place where the food might be terrible, but the act of sharing it means everything. You look around the room at the scars, the burns, the missing teeth, the laughter, and you think maybe the stew was terrible, maybe the bread was cruel, maybe the chicken blinked. But here at this crooked table in a smoky tavern for the first time in days, you don't feel hungry anymore. Historical anchor, tavern food in the Middle Ages was often whatever could be sourced locally and cheaply. Stale bread stews of questionable meat, fermented vegetables, and broths. Guests were rarely told what they were eating and didn't usually ask. Weird fact. Some medieval inns served ale bread, a cake made from stale ale-soaked loaves, baked again with herbs. It was dense enough to be used as a doorstop or a weapon. Academic debate. Historians debate whether the food served in medieval taverns was truly awful or simply unfamiliar to modern palates. Some records show travelers describing it as foul, while others found it sustaining, if cryptic. There's a lull in the noise now, that rare moment in a tavern when the mugs have settled, the songs have paused, and the flames from the hearth crackle louder than conversation. You sip the last of your broth adjacent liquid, and exhale, and then like a sneeze in church, someone slams dice on a table. The room erupts. Mutton bones, someone yells. No, that was 3 rats' teeth in a pebble. Tables shift, mugs slosh. A ring of onlookers forms as quickly as a spilled drink vanishes. A game is on. You edge closer, drawn by curiosity, and the loudest man in the tavern, old Rafe, a toothless brawler with a beard that could trap birds. He's pounding the table and screaming, cheating you used church hands. Someone throws a spoon. You ask the man next to you what church hands are. He says, that's when you bless the dice before you roll them. It's frowned upon. A woman snarls. He rolled a 6 and a halo. The innkeeper steps in, holding a large wooden ladle, like a war mace. No saints at the dice table. The crowd cheers. Someone throws down a sack of coins. Someone else throws down a pair of socks. A child bets a frog. The stakes are escalating. And just like that, you're part of the gambling ring. Not by choice. Someone hands you dice. They're carved from bone, the numbers scratched in with soot or ink or possibly old wine. A man beside you whispers, if you roll 2 7s, don't smile. That's how they catch you. You nod even though 2 7s on dice that go up to 6 feels unlikely. Your turn. You roll. The dice bounce, land, spin once and stop. Someone gasps. A woman faints dramatically. Someone shouts, he rolled the pig's eye. Everyone looks at you. You look at the dice. They show a 4 and a smudge. Apparently that means you're either blessed or cursed. A man in the corner makes a sign of protection with both hands. Someone else says, buy that man a drink. Another says, no, he should buy us one. A woman shrieks, he's the luck bringer, and starts throwing bread. You duck. A ladle misses your ear by inches. In a corner, a monk is playing cards with a tax collector. The stakes are escalating there too. First, it was coin, then cloaks, now theological debate. The monk wins the round by citing an obscure verse about property tax on goats. Dice continue flying. Someone accuses someone else of hiding a third die. Someone else claims the game is cursed. A man flips the table. Underneath it is another man, asleep holding a chicken. No one questions this. At the bar, Thistlegut is mixing something in a boot. It's unclear if it's for drinking or cleaning. He offers it to the winner of the last round. The winner pretends to faint. You step away from the chaos, barely escaping a flying spoon. The cat catches it midair and looks pleased. You find yourself seated next to a very quiet, very focused man stacking coins. His name apparently is Brolf. He's winning everything. Secret, he says to you without looking up. Never play for what you're not willing to drink. You nod like that makes sense. It might. Or it might be one of those things that only make sense after 3 tankards and a concussion. He adds, and never play against someone who whistles while rolling. They've made a deal. A deal, you ask. With what? He just smiles. Meanwhile, someone challenges the innkeeper to arm wrestling. She accepts. The crowd clears a table. A boy places a jug of turnip liquor between them as a prize. They lock hands. Tension fills the room. You count to 5 and hear a crack. It's not clear whose arm it came from, but the winner is definitely not the man whimpering under the bench. The room cheers. The fire roars. A lute strikes up a chaotic jig. The dice are back in motion. Somewhere, someone shouts, he stole my bread and my destiny. You smile, not because you understand the game, but because for the first time in ages, you feel included. In the chaos, in the sweat and firelight and half-muttered rules. It's a mess, yes, but it's their mess. And now it's yours too. You lose a round, then win a spoon, then accidentally become engaged to someone because of a misunderstanding involving a beat and a bet. It's fine. They'll forget by morning. You roll the dice again. This time, no one gasps. No one cheers. But a man nearby raises a mug to you anyway. You clink your cup against his, slosh half of it on the floor, and let the noise carry you. Because here, even losing feels like company. Historical anchor, medieval taverns were social gambling centers. Dice cards, coin flipping, and even animal betting were common. rules were vague, and cheating was more an art than a sin. Weird fact, some dice from the period were loaded or asymmetrical. Cheating was so common that some towns banned dice games outright during festivals. Academic debate. Historians debate whether tavern gambling created bonds or bred resentment. Some argue it was a kind of release valve for peasant frustration. Others claim it reinforced social divisions through loss. The tavern door creaks open again, not with a bang this time, but a soft theatrical flourish. Heads turn, mugs pause midair. Even the cat lifts its chin from the warm stone of the hearth. A figure stands silhouetted in the smoke and firelight, tall, cloaked, draped in moth-eaten velvet, and holding what might be a lute. Someone whispers, "Oh no, it's him." The figure steps forward, dramatically peeling back his hood to reveal glorious shoulder-length curls, a goatee, and a grin that could charm a fence post. His name, of course, is Aelfric the Bard. Aelfric winks at the room, tosses his cloak like he's performing in a royal court. It lands on the barmaid's face and strikes a dramatic pose. "I have returned," he announces, "to serenade you, common folk with tales of love, war, and suspicious cheese." No one claps. He strums a chord on his lute. It produces a sound somewhere between a harp and a door hinge. "Still tuning," he says quickly. "You've never seen a man so proud of doing absolutely nothing." Aelfric struts to the center of the tavern, kicks a stool aside. It shatters, climbs onto a crate, and begins. "Oh, sweet Elspeth fair of eye, she stole my heart and half a pie." You're not sure what genre this is, but the locals begin to relax. Some even smile. The bard continues. "She danced beneath the gallows rope and tripped upon my cousin's goat." Someone mutters, "That goat again." Aelfric bows. "Yes, I know what you're thinking. This man is a genius." But no, I am merely a vessel of inspiration, a sponge of emotion, a feather in the stew of truth. Thistlegut mutters, "That stew has feathers." Aelfric continues without missing a beat. He sings about a monk who fell in love with a duck, a knight who only fought battles while sleepwalking, and a tavern cook who won a duel using only a boiled turnip and a poem. You begin to notice something odd. Every song mentions someone in this very room. The details are exaggerated. Of course, a one-toothed blacksmith becomes a king. The snoring merchant becomes a dragon slayer, but the bones of the stories are real. The locals know it too. They grumble, blush, roll their eyes, but no one leaves. Because Aelfric, as ridiculous as he is, remembers them. And in this world, being remembered is almost like being royal. Then comes the part where he demands payment. Payment needn't be coin, he proclaims, though I accept it. Nay, I am nourished by applause, by appreciation, by soup. A ladle is thrown in his direction. He dodges bows. Soup it is. Someone actually does bring him a bowl, grayish, bubbling with something floating that may once have been meat. Aelfric sniffs. It nods solemnly and says, "Ah, yes, the scent of yesterday's ambitions." He eats it with theatrical suffering, and then he turns to you, "You stranger. I see you there cloaked in mystery and crumbs. Tell me what woes weigh your soul." You stutter something like nothing, or "Please no," but it's too late. He begins composing on the spot. Newcomer, dark eyes full of doubt, who once mistook a rat for trout. Laughter erupts, you shrink in your seat. Who drank the stew, survived the ale, and lived to tell a sorry tale. The crowd is roaring now. You pretend to toast yourself in defeat. But something strange happens next. A man pats your shoulder. Another offers you a crust of real bread. The barmaid winks. You realize this is your initiation. The bard sings you into the tavern's living memory. You are now part of its ridiculous, half-true mythology. You've been roasted, but you've also been included. Aelfric finishes with a bow so deep it becomes a fall. The crowd claps. Someone starts a chant. Speech. Speech. He clears his throat and says, "There is no greater honor than to be fed, mocked, and mildly assaulted in a place like this. May your tankards be full, your boots dry, and your enemies' assembly slightly shorter than you." The room cheers. Aelfric takes a final swig of someone else's ale and collapses onto a bench, immediately snoring. You sit back and feel your cheeks aching from laughter, and beneath it all, something else. Belonging. Even in a place this absurd, you found a strange sort of fellowship, cemented by soup song and shared humiliation. Historical anchor, traveling minstrels, or bards were common in medieval Europe. They entertained with music, poetry, and satire, often referencing locals, sometimes risking offense. In many cases, they were rewarded with food and lodging rather than money. Weird fact, some bards were expected to create spontaneous songs about tavern patrons on the spot. In Wales, insulting poetry, flighting, was a legitimate bardic tradition. Academic debate. Scholars disagree on how much creative freedom bards had. Some argue they were tightly controlled by patrons. Others claim they were society's earliest freelance trolls. The fire burns lower now, snapping softly in the hearth. The wildest laughter has faded, and the lute lies abandoned on a bench like a passed-out poet. People are settling, slouching, mumbling half-sentences to no one in particular. A man is arguing with his ale. The ale is winning, and that's when the real stories begin. It starts with an old woman in a black shawl. You hadn't noticed her before. She speaks slowly, not to anyone specific, but just into the smoky air. Her voice cracks like old wood. Was a time, she says, when the plague came through this valley. The pigs died first, then the priest. Someone near her nods. They buried the pigs, she continues, but not the priest. Said he was still moving. The fire flickers at just the wrong moment. You shift uneasily on your bench. A man with a nose like a hook says, "I saw a ghost in the well once. Gave me advice." "What kind of advice?" someone asks. He shrugs. "Terrible advice." The room chuckles. Then someone else chimes in. A tall woman with soot-stained hands. "Tax collector came here once," she says, "demanded triple tithe. Got drunk on Thistlegut's green badge. Woke up married to a cow." Thistlegut raises a mug in solemn pride. A man in the corner speaks softly. "When I was young, they said there was a pig, glowed green in the dark. Lived under the chapel. Ate only sinners." No one laughs this time. You glance toward the back door just to be sure. Another voice joins. A bard again, but not Aelfric. This one's older, quieter, with eyes like river stones. "I heard a song once," he says, "about a woman who married death. Not because she loved him, but because he was the only one who remembered her birthday." Someone claps slowly, and then someone mentions the black boils. The tavern hushes. Even the cat stops licking itself. "They came quick," the speaker says. Spots under the arms. Swelling. Then the screaming. You don't know who's talking anymore. The voices blend, flow, become a tide of memory and fear. They burned whole streets. Priests said it was sin. No priest left to say anything. One town threw their sick into the river. The river threw them back. You sip your ale. It tastes sharper now, like old news and iron. A boy speaks up. My gran said it wasn't rats, said it was punishment for forgetting. Forgetting what? Each other. That lands like a stone in the fire. Even Thistlegut says nothing. Outside, the wind howls through the shutters. The dog under your table whines softly, then goes silent. Someone pokes the embers in the hearth. Sparks drift up like fireflies escaping judgment. Someone else mutters, used to be. The dead stayed where you buried them. You ask, do they still? No one answers. A new voice speaks dry, sharp, thin. Possibly a priest, or a con man pretending to be one. Hard to say. Not everything we fear is cursed, he says. Sometimes it's just us. Tired, hungry, alone. That's all the devil needs. You glance around the room. The faces are more shadow than skin now. Tired eyes, slumped shoulders, smiles that don't reach the corners. And yet you don't feel afraid. You feel welcome, because in this tavern, fear is not a performance. It's a shared history, a companion like hunger or cold. They don't try to fix it. They just tell it, hold it up, pass it around like soup. Eventually, the stories lighten again. Someone tells the one about the goose that laid pickled eggs. Someone else recounts the haunting of Chamberpot Hill. You laugh even when you shouldn't, because what else can you do? This is how people endure, not by pretending things are fine, but by naming the monsters. Even the made-up ones, especially the made-up ones. You sink deeper into your bench. The room blurs. The warmth wraps around your shoulders. The voices become softer. A woman hums something lullaby-shaped. Someone mutters, "Good night, pig." Someone else responds, "Night saint." You don't know who's who anymore. You're just here, listening, and being listened to. Historical anchor, oral storytelling was essential in medieval tavern life, especially during and after crises like the plague. Folk tales, rumors, ghost stories, and moral fables were passed down in communal spaces like inns and alehouses. Weird fact, after the Black Death stories of walking corpses, prophetic animals, and talking wounds became widespread. Some taverns even banned plague stories during feasts to prevent mass weeping or food loss. Academic debate. Scholars still debate how much of this folklore reflected real belief versus performative grief. Was it mourning, satire, survival through exaggeration? Maybe all three. It hits you all at once. Not a feeling, not a thought, a smell, something ancient, something offensive, something that says, here comes the worst idea you've ever had. You know it before you see it. The privy, the medieval toilet. The stew has moved you. You rise slowly like a soldier, going to battle, and glance toward the back of the tavern. A narrow hallway, a cracked wooden door, a single torch flickering uncertainly beside it, as if warning you not to proceed. But nature has a way of ignoring reason and mercy. You walk, the hallway creaks. The floor leans to one side like it's trying to escape with you. You pass a door that reads, "Supplies. Do not open seriously." Another door marked with a painted goat. You don't ask. At last you reach the privy door. It's ajar, but only barely. You push it open. Inside, darkness, wood, and moral compromise. A pit, a seat, a smell that rewrites your understanding of physics. The walls are etched with desperate poetry. Someone has drawn a smiling sun. Someone else has scratched in "Lord have mercy" in 4 languages, all badly spelled. The roof leaks. A rat stares at you like you've interrupted a business meeting. It doesn't move. Neither do you. There's no lock. There's no toilet paper. Just moss. And something that might be yesterday's bread roll. You begin your business with the solemnity of a monk. Outside, the wind moans through a crack in the wall. The rat sighs. You apologize. It nods. You hear laughter from the tavern. Someone shouts, "Who took the ladle again?" You wonder how many others have sat here before you. How many have thought This is the lowest point in my life, only to realize, no, this is exactly average. And then to your horror, the door swings open. It's a boy. He stares at you. You stare at him. There is silence. There is trauma. Then he shrugs and closes the door again. Nothing is said. Nothing needs to be. You finish as quickly as physics and dignity allow. There's no sink. Of course not. But there's a cracked pitcher and a slanted shelf with 3 sprigs of mint and something that may once have been soap. You wash, you rinse, you make peace with your gods, and you exit. Back in the tavern, the warmth hits your face like a forgiving slap. Your lungs fill with ale-soaked air. You sit down. No one asks where you went, but someone pushes a drink toward you in silent understanding. Across the room, a man stands up. He's tall, hunched, wearing half a cloak and a face that says he's seen too much. I bring tales from the town over, he says. Everyone quiets. Plague's back, he adds. Someone sighs. Again. Only took the mayor this time, he says. And half the theater troupe. Thistlegut mutters. That explains the quiet. The man sits down and eats half a sausage without chewing. You return to your drink, wondering how anyone survived this century. And then a voice near you says, "Want to see something cursed?" Naturally, you say yes. The woman beside you pulls a small jar from her cloak. Inside is a tiny carved skull floating in what might be oil or possibly soup. It blinks. She smiles. Found it in the privy 2 towns over, she says. You nod. This seems normal now. Behind you, the bard begins another tune, this one a waltz about 2 lovers who met in a leech farm. The dog beneath your table starts snoring. The rat may have followed you back. You offer it a crumb. It declines. Classy rat. The room is whole again. Loud, strange, unapologetic. You take a long drink and think, that was the worst toilet of my life. But it wasn't the worst part of the day. Not even close. Historical anchor, privies in medieval taverns, were rudimentary at best, often nothing more than pits with wood planks shared by all poorly ventilated, and frequently the sites of disease spread. Rats and other pests were common, and sanitation was essentially optional. Weird fact, some taverns used chamber pots long after privies became available, especially during winter. In large towns, gong farmers were hired to empty the waste pits. They were paid well, but lived alone. Academic debate. Historians argue whether medieval sanitation practices were wildly unhygienic or simply misunderstood by modern standards. Evidence shows both horrifying conditions and surprisingly complex waste management in some areas. You think about leaving. Briefly, it crosses your mind between the second tankard and the realization that someone just tried to pay for stew with a chicken feather and a promise. But you look at the door, at the cold outside, at the rain slick on the windows, and then back to the fire, the noise, the dog, the stew that still haunts your stomach, and you stay. You ask the innkeeper if there's a bed. She laughs like you've just asked if pigs can read. There's a spot, she says. Back room. Bring your own mouse. You follow her gesture through a warped wooden archway into a narrow corridor that smells of old onions and newer regrets. At the end, you find your sleeping quarters, a low ceiling, a dirt floor, a pile of straw that has ambitions of being a mattress. You lie down. The straw stabs you lovingly in 5 different places. You shift. Something squeaks beneath you. You ignore it. You close your eyes. Try to breathe. Try to pretend this isn't happening. And then, snoring. Not just one snore, an orchestra. The man to your left sounds like a dying bagpipe. The woman in the corner has a rhythm that suggests she's slowly boiling. Someone near the wall is definitely communicating with demons in their sleep. You sit up. You lie back down. You try covering your head with your cloak. Now you can't breathe. You lift the cloak. Now you can't not hear the snoring. A voice whispers from the dark trade you straw for wine. You whisper back, I don't have wine. A pause. Then keep your straw. Something crawls over your foot. You name it Gerald and wish it well. The ceiling drips, slowly, like a medieval metronome. You count the drops, 1, 2, splat, 1, 1, dribble. It's not consistent. It's worse than consistent. You sit up again. There's a window. It's the size of your face and jammed shut. Outside, the moon peers in like it's judging your life choices. Which is fair. From the tavern room beyond, you hear shouting. Not angry shouting, game shouting. You shuffle back out your blanket, draped over your shoulders like a sad cloak. A few others are up too. Can't sleep. Won't sleep. Don't care. You find a bench near the hearth. The fire is mostly embers, now glowing like old secrets. Someone passes you a mug. You don't ask what's in it. You drink. It's warm and sharp and tastes like someone boiled cinnamon and bad decisions. You hear dice again. You see a man arm wrestling himself. You hear the bard muttering in his sleep. No Elspeth. The goat goes outside. The barmaid is scrubbing mugs that don't get cleaner. The innkeeper is sleeping upright, snoring into a ledger. The dog has moved to your lap. A figure near the hearth is telling a story to no one in particular. Once I watched the stars fall into a river. The fish were glowing for days. You don't know what time it is. You don't care anymore. You feel the ache of your body, yes. The grime of travel, the weight of straw in your hair. But you also feel still, like the tavern is breathing around you, like it's holding you there, letting you rest even if sleep won't come. A man drops his mug. It doesn't break. He doesn't pick it up. Someone has begun snoring on the bar itself. You look around at these people, some drunk, some dreaming, some just drifting, and realize this is how they sleep. Not in beds, in bits, in corners, between songs, between shifts, between stories. Not rest, respite, and that's enough. You finally close your eyes, not in a bed, not alone, but here, wrapped in blanket and dog and flickering warmth. The tavern creaks, the fire hisses. Someone somewhere lets out a breath that could be a prayer or a snore, and you let go, just a little. Historical anchor. Most medieval taverns didn't offer individual rooms. Instead, guests paid for bed space, a shared pile of straw, or a wooden bench. Travelers often slept in shifts with livestock nearby, and no privacy to speak of. Weird fact, in some inns, guests were assigned sleeping rotations, 3 to a bed head to toe. Some inns even stacked travelers in bunks made of ropes suspended from beams, called rope beds. Academic debate. Scholars debate whether medieval tavern sleep was ever restful or simply functional. Some argue inns were so chaotic that sleep was a luxury. Others say the community atmosphere created a strange kind of comfort. You're dreaming. At least you think it's a dream. You're floating. Somewhere between sleep and stew, you're flying over rooftops made of thatch and worry. You see chickens the size of carts, a goat wearing a crown, a man juggling turnips while riding a pig. You wake with a start. The fire's gone out. The tavern is darker now, a stew of shadows and faint snoring. The dog is gone. The blanket is half off. Your head feels like someone stored thunder in it overnight. Then from the corner of the room a shout. Thief! You sit up. Someone's taken my spoon. The room bursts into motion. Mugs crash. A stool tips over. Someone shouts. Check the stew pot, someone else yells. The goat took it. There is no goat. The man yelling is older, red-faced, holding a wooden bowl and pointing dramatically with a carrot. His beard quivers with fury. You realize something very important. This tavern is about to have a full-blown spoon-related meltdown. Someone accuses the bard. Me, Elfric, gasps. I haven't touched anything since the porridge uprising of 48. Another voice calls from the corner, check the foreigner. Everyone looks at you. You raise your hands. I don't even like spoons. The room falls silent. That apparently was the wrong thing to say. A woman gasps. A man mutters, what kind of monster? The spoonless man advances. You look like someone who would hide a spoon. A back pocket spooner. Someone else nods. He walks like a cutlery thief. There's no logic here, only mob energy and too much ale. You do what any sensible person would do in this moment. You stand up and back away slowly. That's when a second shout breaks the tension. I found it. All eyes turn. A child is holding up the missing spoon, now covered in what appears to be jam and ashes. Dog buried it, she says proudly. The innkeeper sighs. Again, everyone relaxes. Tension deflates like a leaky wineskin. The spoon is returned. The man hugs it. I thought I'd lost you, he whispers. You sit back down and whisper to no one. What is happening? Across the room, a new drama unfolds. A man with a crooked hat is challenging a woman to a duel. With spoons. They face each other, serious as saints. The crowd gathers. Someone slaps a drum. Someone else places bets. The woman strikes first. Swift, precise catches his shoulder. He gasps. She bows. He retaliates, flicking soup from his spoon directly at her eye. She dodges, counters with a double tap to the ribs. It's a spectacle. The duel lasts 6 minutes, ends in mutual exhaustion. They shake hands. Someone buys them a drink. Someone else writes a poem about it. The tavern settles again. You sip something warm. You don't ask what it is. You've learned. And then you hear it a whisper. Low, urgent. You turn. 3 cloaked figures are huddled near the cellar door. One of them gestures you over. You hesitate. Then you go. It's the bard, the spoon duelist, and a man with ink-stained fingers. We meet here, the bard whispers to discuss. The price of soup. You blink. Is it going up? No, the spoon duelist says. We're bringing it down. The ink-fingered man nods. We can't keep letting Thistlegut get away with this. 3 turnips per bowl madness. You're not sure if this is a joke or a literal soup rebellion. Join us, the bard says, and you'll never eat overpriced stew again. You pause. Do I get a cloak? They look at each other. The spoon duelist shrugs. Fine. You nod. I'm in. They hand you a napkin. Use this wisely. You leave the meeting unsure whether you've joined a political movement or a dinner club, but it doesn't matter. You found your people. Historical anchor taverns were often centers for informal political discussion, underground meetings, and local organizing. While not revolutionary in the modern sense, these gatherings could influence town decisions, tax protests, and small-scale revolts. Weird fact. Spoon theft was surprisingly common. In some inns, guests were expected to bring their own utensils, hence the phrase "carry your own spoon," a sign of being prepared. Academic debate. Some scholars argue that the tavern was the proto-parliament of the medieval lower class, where decisions were made outside official channels. Others say they were mostly chaotic entertainment zones with little structure. It's quiet again. Not silent, nothing is ever truly silent in the Sly Pig, but quiet enough. Just the whisper of wood creaking, the occasional slosh of a forgotten mug, the low hum of people either asleep or plotting. You stretch your back, grateful for the brief reprieve from soup uprisings and spoon duels. But as you lean back into your bench, the floor beneath you rumbles, faintly, rhythmically. Boom, boom, boom. Then the door bursts open, carried on a gust of wind and pure accusation. He stands in the doorway like a thundercloud in boots, a man in black cloaked from head to toe, robes that suggest religion, but eyes that suggest enforcement. His leather gloves creak, his boots are polished, and behind him, 3 others in half armor and bad moods. Someone mutters, "It's the Inquisitor." Someone else mutters again. He steps inside. The tavern does that thing where it pretends not to panic while completely panicking. Mugs vanish, hoods go up. One man physically becomes a pile of coats. The Inquisitor surveys the room. Then he speaks. "I seek truth," he says, "and possibly a drink." The innkeeper sighs. "We're out of both." He approaches the hearth and looks directly at you. You try not to breathe. "You're new," he says. You nod. He sits across from you, folds his gloved hands. "I'm investigating heresy, suspicion, and excessive dice use." You say nothing. He produces a parchment from inside his cloak. It has drawings, bad ones. One appears to be a pig with a crown. Another looks suspiciously like Thistlegut. I have reason to believe this tavern is the site of gatherings. He says gatherings the way someone else might say satanic goat festivals. You glance nervously at the napkin, still tucked in your pocket, from last night's soup conspiracy. He leans closer. "Tell me." He says, "Have you seen anything unusual?" You open your mouth to answer, but before you can speak, a crash. The cellar door bursts open, and a man emerges covered in ale and candle wax, yelling, "I found the good mead." All heads turn. The Inquisitor frowns. "Who is that?" Someone answers, "That's just Dent." "What's in the cellar?" Mead. Several voices reply in unison. Dent hiccups, raises a jug and slurs, and possibly a ghost. The Inquisitor blinks. You seize the moment. "Would you like something to drink?" you ask desperately, trying to change the subject. He eyes you carefully. Then yes, you breathe again. You pour him a mug from the nearest jug. It's unclear what's in it. Maybe ale, maybe potion, possibly candle, runoff, but he drinks it without complaint. His expression doesn't change. "This is adequate," he says. You nod. Across the room, the bard starts strumming a gentle tune, a ballad of innocence, of virtue, of completely legal spoon transactions. The Inquisitor raises an eyebrow. "Do people often sing here?" You reply, "Mostly to pass the time." He nods slowly, suspiciously, then produces a small black notebook. He writes something. You peek. It says "Songs Ilpo Suspicious." He closes it with ominous finality. Thistlegut appears with a platter of something. Pickled eggs. "Your Holiness." The Inquisitor accepts, one sniffs, it eats it in a single bite, and doesn't blink. You're terrified. But slowly, so slowly, you see something change. His shoulders relax. His gloves come off. He drinks more. He starts tapping his boot to the music. He says, "I remember taverns like this from my youth." Someone murmurs, "He was young." Someone else adds, "Not this tavern, right?" He doesn't hear them or ignores them. He drinks again and again. By the 4th mug, he's smiling. By the 5th, he's crying. "My mother made stew like this." He sobs, clutching a spoon like a relic. The tavern begins to breathe again. Someone lights a second candle. Someone else brings him a blanket. A woman offers him pickled onion advice. The 3 guards still standing near the door awkwardly accept mugs and snacks. One starts playing dice. Another removes a helmet and sighs deeply. The third falls asleep immediately, snoring into a plate of peas. And just like that, the storm passes. The Inquisitor falls asleep in a chair, a spoon still clutched in his hand, muttering something about goats and forgiveness. You exhale. You survived your first Inquisition, and no one got arrested. Yet, historical anchor, itinerant church officials, like inquisitors and tax inspectors, often traveled across towns, staying in inns and taverns, where they were both feared and mocked. Their presence disrupted everything until they drank. Weird fact. Some inquisitors recorded moral atmosphere reports about taverns, noting singing dice games and unusual stew gatherings as evidence of possible heresy or rebellion. Academic debate. Historians debate whether such officials had real power in remote villages or were just figureheads. Some say they were often outnumbered, outdrunk, and quietly ignored. It's morning now, maybe. There's no sun. Just a weak light sliding in through the warped shutters like it's embarrassed to be here. The tavern is a battlefield made of crumbs, splinters, empty mugs, and bodies snoring in various angles of defeat. You're one of them. Your cloak is twisted around your shoulders like a reluctant hug. Your hair smells faintly of stew and questionable decisions. You're pretty sure a spoon is tucked into your belt. You don't remember putting it there. A stool lies broken beside you. A dog snores gently on your leg. A rat, possibly Gerald, is gnawing a breadcrumb 2 feet away. You sit up and immediately regret it. Your head is an echo chamber. Your mouth tastes like you chewed on a candle. Your stomach is staging protests. You stumble to the bar where the innkeeper is pouring something murky into a cracked cup. Hair of the hog, she asks. You nod. She hands you the drink. It tastes like moss and regret. You finish it in one go. She nods back. You'll live, probably. You turn around and see the tavern in daylight. Or close enough. It's a mess. But not a bad mess. A lived-in mess. Like the room itself partied harder than anyone inside it. Aelfric the Bard is asleep face first on a table, a chicken feather stuck to his forehead. The Inquisitor is slumped in a chair, spoon still clutched in his hand, muttering something about piety and pickles. Three-Keg Tom is curled under the table, hugging an empty barrel like a lover. The cat is now wearing someone's sock as a cape. You sit down, holding your cup with both hands, and then you hear it. A trumpet, not a good one, more like a rusty horn with sinus issues. Everyone groans. The door bursts open. A man stumbles in, wearing mismatched boots, a breastplate made of wood, and a tin pot on his head. He's blowing the trumpet again. Good people. He shouts clearly, speaking only to himself. A great challenge awaits. You wince. He continues. The noble Baron, Peetlebrow, invites all fighting men and mildly sober peasants to his tournament of champions. No one reacts. He waits, then adds, "There's stew." Several heads rise. He tosses a scroll dramatically onto the floor and blows his horn one more time before turning and galloping away on foot. The scroll unrolls slowly, revealing smudged ink and poor handwriting. You glance at it. Something about axe-throwing pig wrestling and a mystery event only referred to as the potato. Aelfric stirs. Did someone say potato? You shake your head. The innkeeper picks up the scroll, glances at it, shrugs. We've had worse weekends. The barmaid calls from the kitchen. We're out of eggs. Thistlegut appears from the cellar, holding a jug and a handful of mushrooms. We're not out of possibility. Someone cheers. You look around. The tavern is coming alive again, not quickly, not gracefully, but determinedly. A chair is repaired with a belt. Someone builds a bench out of firewood and a wheel. A man brews something questionable on the hearth using an old boot and time. The bard begins a slow ballad titled "My Head is a Tavern and All the Doors Are Screaming." It's surprisingly relatable. You smile, because now you know something you didn't when you arrived. Taverns aren't just about drink or sleep or questionable stew. They're ritual, rhythm, refuge. They take you in broken, fill you with bad food and worse ideas, and send you back into the world laughing anyway. The cat jumps into your lap. Gerald joins. The dog sniffs your foot and sighs like an old monk. You toast them all with what's left of your drink. To waking up and trying again, you say, no one hears you. But somehow everyone agrees. Historical anchor. Morning afters in medieval inns were often marked by improvised cleaning, hair of the dog remedies, and quick reorganization for the day's travel or town gossip. Alcohol consumption was high, but the social bonding ran deeper. Weird fact, some taverns hired boys to play morning horns, to wake patrons often called morn whistles. The practice was largely hated. One town reportedly paid a man to not blow his horn. Academic debate. Scholars debate whether medieval hangovers were as brutal as ours today, given that ale was weaker, but brewed inconsistently, sometimes dangerously strong. Diaries and satire suggest post-tavern suffering was common enough to inspire folk remedies. You should be on the road by now. That was the plan. Wake up. Wipe the stew off your boots. Dodge a farewell from Aelfric and quietly vanish from the sly pig before someone offers you another spoon, duel, or asks about the missing chamber pot. You still have no idea what happened to it, but you're still here. Why? Because of a hat. Specifically, the hat you now find on your head, a felt thing with a feather, a buckle, and no known owner. The barmaid gave it to you this morning with a wink and said, "You'll need this if you're going to win." Win what you ask. Exactly. Now you're in the courtyard behind the tavern, standing next to Thistlegut, who's juggling eggs. A man named Butterfist, who may be part goat, and 3 cloaked figures you suspect are still part of the underground soup rebellion. The bard is tuning a lute aggressively. The innkeeper is wearing armor made entirely of stew pots. It's time for the unofficial annual back alley medieval tavern games. No one remembers when they started. No one knows how to stop them. Your first event, mug carry. Whoever can carry the most full mugs across a slippery wooden plank without dropping one wins a week of free stew or a commemorative wooden ladle. Choice is yours. You agree because saying no feels illegal. You line up. A barmaid slams mugs into your arms. They slosh. They're heavy. The plank looks like it was designed by someone who hates ankles. You take a step. It creaks. It bends. You make it halfway before Butterfist stumbles, slips, and takes out half the line like a mugged tsunami. You fall, but somehow land upright, with one mug intact. Winner, the innkeeper declares. You get the ladle. Next up, the mead sprint. You're handed a tankard of strong mead and told to sprint once around the tavern without spilling a drop. A child throws cabbage at your legs as you run. The dog joins halfway. A donkey appears uninvited. You make it back soaked and winded, but your mug is still 3/4 full. You place second. The reward, a boiled beet with a smile drawn on it. The bard starts composing on the spot. O beat of hope, O root of cheer, you made us laugh, you stained my ear. The final event, catch the goose. You don't ask, you just prepare yourself emotionally. A sack is brought out. It honks violently. They release the goose. It screams across the yard like it owes nothing to the laws of nature. You, Thistlegut, The innkeeper and at least 6 others run after it in a blur of feathers, curses, and overturned barrels. You do not catch the goose. No one does. The goose wins and becomes the new local legend. As the chaos dies down and people laugh, drink, and swap bruises, the innkeeper calls everyone to the middle of the yard. She raises her mug. To the tavern, she says, for keeping us warm-fed and mildly concussed. Everyone cheers. Aelfric adds, and to you, traveler, who came in muddy and leave slightly less muddy. You grin. A child gives you a small ribbon made of bread. It falls apart immediately. Thistlegut hands you a scroll. What's this, you ask? He grins. Membership. You're one of us now. You nod solemn. The sky begins to dim again. Someone lights lanterns. Someone sings off-key. A couple dances barefoot in the mud, and no one minds. You sit on a barrel watching the smoke rise from the kitchen chimney. You've laughed harder, eaten worse, slept weirder, and met more strange people than you thought possible. But you also found something else. Joy. Not the shiny kind. Not the perfect, polished, scripted kind, but the messy, gritty, stew-stained kind that fills the cracks between long walks and heavy days. Here in this crooked tavern, with its leaking ceiling and unpredictable soup, you were seen. You belonged. You'll leave soon, but you'll remember this place, its warmth, its rhythm, its people who sing about root vegetables like they're royalty. And when the road grows long and the nights grow cold, you'll smile and say, I once caught a goose, almost. Historical anchor community games were common in and around medieval taverns. Foot races, juggling contests, animal chasing, especially pigs and geese, and mead drinking competitions. They weren't official, but they were beloved. Weird fact, some taverns kept geese specifically for these kinds of contests. The most notorious greased goose chase was eventually banned in some towns after too many injuries, mostly to pride. Academic debate. Scholars debate whether these games were spontaneous or part of recurring local customs. Some argue they were a medieval form of stress relief. Others see them as early performance art. You're packed, sort of. Your boots are tied even if one has a ladle tucked into it. Your belt pouch jingles not with coin, but with a spoon, a beat charm, 2 pickled onions, and a note that simply reads, "Owe you 1 goose." You shoulder your cloak, now crusted with the story of at least 3 meals and 1 regrettable nap. It's time. You stand in the tavern doorway, the morning mist curling around your ankles like a farewell. Inside the tavern is waking again. Thistlegut is humming tunelessly while decanting something that smokes. The barmaid is stacking mugs like a cathedral. Aelfric is composing what he claims is the Ballad of the Stranger with the spoon. The dog lifts his head from under a bench, gives you 1 slow blink, then goes back to snoring. You breathe in the tavern 1 last time. Ale, ash, bread, wet wool, old laughter. You step outside. The world beyond the sly pig is quiet, cold, clean. It doesn't reek of onion stew or half-truths or dice games where the rules change halfway through. It's beautiful, but it's not home. Not yet. The road stretches out ahead of you, narrow and gray. You take the first step, then another. You feel every ache, every bruise, every inch of tavern still clinging to your cloak and your bones. After a while, you hear its soft footsteps behind you. You turn. It's the barmaid. She hands you something wrapped in cloth. Travel bread, she says. It's mostly bread. You nod. Thank you. She nods back. Don't come back too soon. I won't, you say. You will. She walks back. You keep going. The road curves. The tavern disappears behind trees and fog. And still, you carry it with you. in the way you step a little lighter now, in the way you smile when you hear birds bicker like drunks, in the way you check your pocket for spoons just in case. You're not the same person who walked into that crooked door. You're a little more bruised, a little more full, and maybe, just maybe, a little more real. And in the end, that's all the sly pig ever promised. Not escape, not answers, just fellowship, stew, and stories. A place where even a stranger with sore feet could be someone. You hum a tune you don't remember learning, something about Elspeth and her goat, and as the wind picks up and the road opens wide, you laugh quietly to no one at all, because somewhere behind you there's a tavern that still remembers your name, and a cat probably sitting on your favorite stool. Historical anchor. Many travelers left taverns not with money or glory, but with food stories and the strange companionship that only shared hardship brings. Inns were more than shelters. They were crossroads of identity. Weird fact. Some medieval travelers kept souvenirs from taverns, not coins, but spoons, scraps of parchment, or symbolic trinkets like dried herbs or bread charms. Academic debate. Historians debate whether medieval taverns were truly egalitarian, but most agree they offered one rare thing: space where class blurred and stories mattered more than status. And now your boots are off, your eyes are heavy. The tavern is quiet again, not gone, just tucked away like a memory wrapped in wool. You didn't just visit a medieval inn. You lived there, if only for a night. You sat on the uneven bench, sipped the mystery stew, laughed at the bard's rhymes, and ducked a flying spoon or two. You were questioned by an inquisitor recruited by a soup rebellion, and almost married via beat-based misunderstanding. You braved the privy, survived the dice games, and nearly caught a goose. But more than anything, you were seen. Not as a stranger, but as a part of something messy, warm, ridiculous, and real. Because in that crooked room, with the crooked rules, every person mattered. Every laugh was shared. Every tale, true or not, was worth telling. And maybe when the road gets long and the fire grows cold and the world feels a little too clean and a little too quiet, you'll remember the sly pig, the snoring dog, the stew with secrets, the spoon duel at midnight, and you'll smile because you weren't just a guest, you were a character. Now roll over, close your eyes. Let the crackle of the hearth fade in your mind. The tavern's still there, waiting, just beyond the fog, and you'll find your way back when the road curves again. Good night, traveler.